Howdy guys, here we got a G56, or at least most of the parts from one. Here we got the main shaft. Take it out of our jig, if you want to call it that. In case anybody's wondering, this jig is simply a 1.5 inch hole drilled 2 inches deep in a block of wood. This is just to hold it vertical so we can slide the gears on. It's fairly handy. Here is the main shaft. Obviously, the way that all the gears are is we got the rear main bearing, we got reverse, which has a little sleeve that goes over here, a race, and then we got first, second, third, fourth, and sixth. And then we got the pocket bearing over here. So that's the order of all everything's going to go on. This here is this lip, or this washer, thrust washer, whatnot, is machined into the shaft. So you have to put on all the gears from this end and then all the gears from that end. So we're going to start with second. Here we have the first and second gear assembly. As you can see, when we disassembled the transmission, we've left the whole assembly sitting here as it came off the transmission. That way there's no accidents of accidentally putting something on upside down or putting something where it wasn't supposed to be. That way it's all how it's supposed to be and we can just put it on the transmission. There's also the thing that does is that because there's a couple parts that will interchange between back and forth between themselves, like the synchronizer assemblies for both 5th, 6th, 3rd, 4th, and 1st and 2nd, leaving everything how it was, all the second parts, keeping them together, all the first gear parts, leaving them together. That way, since they're all worn together, they can continue to wear like they were before we pulled them, and they don't start having to wear a new wear pattern into various parts. And it just helps the life of the synchronizer. So here we go. We're going to put this guy on. First, before we do so, we will use some assembly lube. Basically, what this is 50 weight transmission fluid. It's got a little hint of Lucas added. Reason being is because Lucas is basically an additiveless oil thickener, and so just the extra thick oil helps prevent the gear lube from sliding off the shaft and dropping to the bottom of the transmission before we get it running. Because obviously it's not going to be as fully saturated as if it was running for hours and hours. But we will do our best. So we're just going to put some oil on there. When you try to get the Lucas to mix in, you're going to want to warm it up a little bit first, just to help. So again, we're going to just take the bearing, set it down, like so, get that all nice and coated. So now we're going to do second gear. As far as which bearings go where, if you get mixed up, you really can't. They're all different sizes, you can't mess it up. So here we got the second gear. Obviously, he's going to go with this side here, facing downwards. There's no orientation that has to be you have to worry about. And this guy here, he should go on any which way. This little plate here, synchronizer plate, he goes on any which way. Slide him on, and he's good. He can be a little bit of a bugger. There he is. It's a tight fit. You're just going to want to make sure that plate goes up, fully seated, no issues. Just going to slide him on the transmission. Go around, make sure he's all nice and oily up. Then we've got this synchronizer shift collar, I guess. But we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to put down this cone dude. We're just going to put him down with the cone facing up, like so. Then we're going to do this synchronizer, copper synchronizer ring, or brass, brass synchronizer ring. You can see that he's in good shape. Like I say, first, second like to wear off. They like to smoke themselves the fastest of all of them. So make sure that the synchronizer ring is in good shape. You can see that all the brass is there and nothing looks to be excessively worn. This guy is in good shape. So we're going to put him down with the tabs facing down. Make sure he meshes in that synchro plate. Now we're going to grab the synchronizer hub. Actually, nope, that came off as two pieces. So we got another synchronizer ring here. You can see that those tabs there, those intermesh with the tabs on that cone bit that we put on at first. So again, we're going to check this guy for wear, this wear surface here where the synchronizer wears. We want to make sure that there's no scarring or anything on him, that none of these tabs are bent, and the teeth aren't worn or broken off. This guy is all good, so we're going to put him on, like so, and he meshes, and he's all good there. And you can see that this actually spins independently. because we're sitting here vertical on the shaft, gravity's pushing it down, so it will be a little stiffer than it should be. It's a good idea to put a little lube in there just to help prevent excessive wear to the synchronizer, because like I say, that synchronizer is just floating in there. So a little lube just to help it stay nice and cool and lubricated. Then we got the synchronizer hub. You can see here, this guy's got two different sides. He's got this flat side here, and he's got this one with a ridge. You can see there's a ridge there, completely flat ridge. This ridge stands up, and he just sits down on top like that. He goes on those splines on the main shaft. It'd be a good idea to lubricate that, wouldn't it? I am not stingy with that lube, because it's the same stuff that my transmission is going to be running, so you don't have to be sparing with it. If you're using something else, you don't want to go too crazy, because you'll end up, the additives or whatever you're running, whatever lube you're using, can interfere with whatever transmission fluid you're going to be running. Clean up our hands really quick. So there's that. Now when you set this guy down, you can see that it has the 3 small notches and the 3 large notches. The large notches intermesh with these larger notches, and then there's these small ones here that the small ones go in. So just make sure you get that good, and you'll be fine. So like that, he's all nice and lubed. He spins like he should. There's no pressed on fit so far. Okay, put the snap washer on. Make sure to remember this, it's very important. Make sure we're in seated all the way. Okay, now for the shift collar. This guy only goes on one way. You cannot physically get him on another way without using a very large hammer. There's 2 surfaces here. One is just a nice flat machined surface, and the other is basically the same, but it has this little identification ring here that goes around the outside. That identification ring goes up, so like so. What we're just going to do is, one of these teeth on this this synchronizer hub is shorter than the rest, and because of the teeth here are different thicknesses, it will not go on the wrong way. So you can see when you set this guy down, one side is being held up. That's the side with the short tooth. Now we just have to find the short tooth on the shift collar, which is, let's see if we can find it here really quick. Here it is right here. See that one right there, shorter than the rest. So he's going to just sit right next to the tooth that has the shorter tooth on the main synchronizer hub. Take a little bit of, there it goes, just like that. He sits down flat, and we want to make sure he's shifted into gear. You can see that second gear is not going anywhere. He's fully shifted down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the shift detents in. For that, we'll just need a small screwdriver and the shift detents. These guys are identical. Matter of fact, all the 5th, 6th, 3rd, 4th, and 1st, 2nd, 6th shift detents are indeed identical. So while it's good not to swap parts, it's not that big a deal. So we're just going to put him in. There's little holes on this hub that the springs sit into. Make sure you have to get the springs in those holes. Okay, just like that. So now we're just going to take it again, put the spring in that little hole there. Use our screwdriver. Have our screwdriver on hand, so once we get it, we're good to go. So the spring's in the hole, and you just want to use a screwdriver, push in on the detent, and clip it down. You want to make sure that you push it all the way down, and then make sure this ring doesn't pop up, because then they'll shoot everywhere. Let's see if I can spin this guy here. There, just so you can kind of see a little bit. Again, make sure the spring's on. Put him in this notch. Everything fits square. Push him in, push him down. And now we're going to put the synchronizer assembly from first gear on. Now here you can see we got all 3 parts again. The cone, the outer ring, and then the synchronizer, brass synchronizer material. Let me see what you can see here. we're going to do is we're going to make sure all this is in good shape. We're going to check the wear surfaces here. We're going to make sure these little tabs here are not bent up. Make sure these gears, all these little teeth here, are in place and they're not excessively worn. You can tell if they're excessively worn because if the point is on the offset or something, that means that they've been worn because it's supposed to be in the center. We got the brass material here. As you see, there's no excessive wear on the wear surfaces here. There's also no brass material chipped off, which happens. And then we got this guy here. He has not been hot from heat or a excessive wear in any way, so he's good. And then you can see that everything's nice and oily. We oiled it all up beforehand, but we're going to give it a little bit more, just right here and all that. Show the shifty tense. There we go. And we're just going to sit everything down in place. First of all, actually, we can assemble this, all these rings here, as here. Again, they're all very oily. You'd want to oil them up so they don't get smoked. So here we go, like so. He's sitting just like that. So now we're just going to sit this guy down. These notches here go in the notches there. Like so. So now we're going to do first gear assembly. Again, we're oil this all up where the bearing goes. Not skimping at all in that department. Then we've got the gear. First of all, we have the bearing. So that guy sits down on top there. Rotate him. I'll get them all nice and oily. And then we've got this gear here. It's got this plate on it. This is first gear. He's a little difficult to get off, so I'm not going to pull him off for you. But just make sure there's no excessive wear right here. And then all the teeth here are in good shape, not heavily worn. As you can see, this guy's in really nice shape. And then we've got the tabs here, or the notches, I guess, the cutouts. And then we've got the tabs here. That's where they mesh. So you're just going to set it down on top, spin it until it goes in. Then there you go. Okay, now that we have first gear on, we're going to want to lift up on the shift collar in order to get it into neutral. We're going to want to do that now, because if we didn't have all this stuff on, the shifty tense would fall out, spring out when we do this. So pushing down here, we're just going to, like so. Now this guy's in neutral, and second gear is in neutral. Next up, the thrust washer here, and then the reverse gear race. First of all, with this thrust washer, we're going to heat them both up to 350 degrees, and then do one at a time, seat it down, and then let it cool, and that way it'll be nice and tight. Otherwise you got to press it in place, and that just can cause issues. With this thrust washer, there's two sides. One of these edges has wear showing at the very edge. It's a good thing. First of all, to check, make sure there's no excessive wear, but you can kind of see there's a little bit of wear at the very edge, whereas on this guy, that wear is towards the center more. The side that has the wear at the very edge goes down. That is where it's rubbing on first gear here. That way everything's back to how it was, you're not flipping it over. So we're going to warm this up on the, it's somewhat of a bearing heater. It's just a little stove majigger. Put him on low. And then we got a little olive oil here. Here's just a little trick. Olive oil has a smoke point of 320 degrees. So we're just going to put a little bit on there. Spread the joy. And then that will start to smoke once we're at the correct temperature. Otherwise you got to keep checking it. So there we go. We're going to do the same thing here. That way we don't have to wait on them. This guy takes a little while to heat due to the lack of surface area and just the general shape of it. We're going to put this oil on the outside. That way we can wipe it off. Don't have that inside the transmission. Or not a lot of it anyway. So there we go. And now what we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to just wipe all the oil off. Because the oil is somewhat thick, it can impinge on seating correct all the way. So we're just going to wipe all the oil off here. All that extra oil we put on there. We're just going to wipe it off and make sure that's completely clean. No debris or anything. Nothing that would prevent it from sitting all the way down. There you can see the part is starting to smoke. That's all we need. I'm just going to take him like so. You can see he is indeed smoking. We're just going to grab him. Down. Now we got to make sure he's fully pressed down. Like that. You can see he still spins on the shaft. That won't be the case for very long. I'm just going to spin him a little bit, make sure he's continues to be good. And there he is. I say he's good. We're going to turn off that guy. So we're just going to grab him. And we're going to see which side do I want to put up. I want to put this guy up like so. And he just sits down, and we're just going to push him like so. Make sure he is all the way down. Now he's cooling off. He's stiff. Okay, now reverse gear assembly. Okay, so here we are. We got the reverse gear. We're just going to put this all one by one because we're going to assume that whoever's watching this isn't sure how it goes in place. First of all, we have the bearing here, which before putting it on, you guessed it, assembly lube. Lots of it. Oh yeah. Like that. Like that. He gets more. I should also note that when you're putting these bearings on, make sure that all these rollers here are intact. Sometimes they'll be cut in half or have chunks missing out of them and stuff like that. So you just want to make sure they're all in shape, good shape. And then here we have reverse gear. Now he only goes on one way. He goes down like so with all the fancy stuff that's machined into the top, facing up like so. He spins all nice. Okay, so here we have the reverse synchronizer assembly. We basically can put him on as a unit. You can see there's the three pieces. We got just like before, we got the cone here. We got the brass synchro ring, and then we got the outer synchro ring. Again, you're going to want to watch the wear surface here, the brass material for no chips or heavy wear, and then this cone here for heavy wear, and again tabs here for bends and teeth here for excessive wear. All this stuff looks good on this guy, so we're going to put them back together like so. Make sure those little tabs in this guy, how you can see there's 3 sets, 1, 2, 3. He interlock with the log tabs here, so we're just going to put him in place like so, like that. So you got the 2 tabs and then the long tab in the center. So now you're just going to set that on top, and then the brass synchro ring has those 6 tabs. The older version only had 3. I missed showing you that, but this guy has 6. So we're going to put him in place like so. And he sits good. Now we have this guy here, and I'll just put him off. I'll show you guys how to do it. This guy has the 3 tabs here. That goes down. This just a perfectly round setup goes up. So he goes like this. And he meshes, if we can get him to go down. There we go, like so. And then I should show you. Those 3 tabs go with the 3 longer tabs on that ring here. On that ring, there's the 3 longer tabs. He goes in those notches. So once you get him meshed, he'll only go on fully seat in one direction. There you go. He's fully seated. He's good. Now we got to put this guy on. The reverse assembly is a pretty easy setup to work with. It's really simple. I'm just going to, if you have like a little Vaseline, put a little Vaseline on everything. Put on these so they stick into place. I got this oil is pretty thick, so it will hold it on pretty good. if you're having problems, Vaseline works. So they're all fully in, and this is easier when you have 3 as opposed to 6. You see that mark there on the shift collar? You want to make sure that's centered in the shift detent holes, or notches. You want to make sure it's centered, and then like so, and then he pops into place. He clicks in neutral, and he goes in reverse. Lock to the shaft, and he's in neutral, and everything spins like it should. So that guy's good. And of course, assembly lube, just because we can. All goody stuff needs to be lubricated. Now for the rear main bearing. When we get that, we're going to put it on the heater. Okay, now if you pull both the input bearing and the rear bearing off, and you're not sure which one's which, first of all, they look identical, they appear identical, and even the parts, when you get them now, get replacements, they're both identical. However, the part number on the originals are different. The rear main shaft here is a 32210 ST, whereas this is just a plain 32210. So the ST is the rear. I'm not sure how big of a difference they are. I've yet to figure out exactly what the difference between them are, but we know that this one's the rear, so we're just going to keep it on the rear so everything can wear like it was without problems. So we're just going to put that guy on the heater. Okay, you can see we're starting to smoke over there, just ever so slightly. You gotta make sure you don't wait till it's like billowing, because then that's too hot. Okay, we're just gonna turn this guy off. Pick him up. And set him on. Make sure he's all the way down. Now for the snap ring. These guys are never very easy. It's always a good idea when you put in a snap ring to rotate it. Make sure it rotates easily, and that way you know it's all the way in and it's not going to fall out on you, because that happens and can cause a little bit of a mess. So there we go. We got the rear of the shaft all together. Now's a good time to make sure everything shifts correctly. That's reverse. It's out of reverse, then we got first, he's locked to the shaft. Lap neutral, he's good. Then we got second, he's locked to the shaft. Neutral. We're good. He's a little stiffer because, again, the gravity. So, the rear of the main shaft is completely assembled. We're going to flip it over.